Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Live is powered by Ram Trucks.
Hello, friends. It's week 10. God, I've got so much joy. I can't even try it. I tried to stay contained. I cannot stay contained even though the game wants me to. You know what time it is. We're here to get you set for everything that you need to know tonight for fantasy football all the way up to kickoff. And I've got the joy down in my heart because I'm hanging out with Matt Harmon. I'm hanging out with Andy Behrens. I'm Jason Fitz. And gentlemen, here's the thing. I feel the spirit of thankfulness because tonight I'm thankful we get Carolina taking on the Bears. Remember, in the summer, everybody's sitting here saying, I just wish I had football. Tonight we have Thursday Night Football. That's a gracious, glorious thing. I moved that they should put bad games at the beginning of the NFL season because we would be starved for it. So Harmon, we get a little of that juju out right now. A game we can all just agree is going to be stellar and spectacular for a great weekend, right?
Yeah, sure, man. I mean, that sounds good to me. I don't love the idea of like, oh yeah, let's put our worst foot forward to start the NFL season. I'm going to go ahead and nix that idea. That's a no for me. But listen, all 32 of these teams are unique and beautiful in their own ways. They're all very different. These two very different squads will put on a performance for us tonight, and God help us, we're going to watch it.
Wait. Okay, Behrens, hear me out here. Just hear me out. Like, if ever you've gone on a diet, for example, where maybe you stop eating cake for a little while. The first time you go to eat cake after a little while, it can be bad cake. It can be like trucker cake. It can be, over a gas station cake that's been out there for 3 weeks. You take that first bite of it and you're still like, oh, cake is so good. When you've had a little bit of time and no cake, any cake is good cake. I'm still going to be a believer that any cake is good cake means this game at the beginning of the season would be lauded. We'd be throwing parades for it. Let's go.
I actually love this metaphor of Tyson. I think it's Tyson Bagent is the gas station cake, if I'm reading you correctly. I like that a lot. Tyson Bagent, by the way, a 3.5-point favorite tonight in primetime. What a world. What a league. I love it. I feel like the NFL's broadcast partners would probably quibble just a little bit with your plan to put the absolute worst possible game on in week 1 on Thursday night. But hey, what do I know?
Well, let's get to the Thursday night matchup, which, by the way, is a win-win for the Chicago Bears. No matter what happens, we'll explain why in a little bit. We got the Bears taking on the Panthers. You see the records right there. Chicago is a 3.5-point favorite. The over-under on this one is at 38. And we'll take a look here at the inactives you need to know tonight because some surprises here. We obviously expected Justin Fields to be inactive. That means Tyson Bagent will get the nod yet again. Khalil Herbert is inactive. There was some thought he would be elevated off of injury reserve. It looks like he might return next week. And Von Bell, safety, is active. Again, this is interesting because if Chicago beats Carolina, maybe it helps Carolina knowing, or helps the Bears, I should say, knowing that they own Carolina's draft pick next year. So it's really win-win for the Bears. Let's start with our Bears fan. Andy Behrens, what are you looking forward to in this matchup?
Yeah, well, I'm looking at the Bears' backfield, and I am starting D'Onta Foreman pretty enthusiastically tonight. This was going to be murky if Khalil Herbert had actually returned. He practiced in full this week, but that's not happening. So we get a full dose of D'Onta Foreman. You look back these last 4 games. Listen, he's got a pair of 80-yard games over the past month. He had the 3-touchdown performance, which I believe was against a team that someone around here roots for. He's been good. It's not the first time that he's taken advantage of an opportunity either. We got a revenge game narrative tonight. That's kind of fun for Foreman. He also gets a defense that ranks near the bottom of the league against the run. The Panthers have allowed 14 rushing scores. They give up about 4.5 yards per carry. Still, no matter what happens here, Khalil Herbert is returning from that ankle injury. It's probably next week, and he probably reclaims the starting role. He's started in every game so far this season that he's played. He's actually averaging 5.3 yards per carry and like 3.6 yards after contact per attempt, which is one of the highest rates in the league. So Herbert has been very good. This is probably the last like 20-touch game that we get out of Foreman. The odd man out in this backfield has obviously been Roschon Johnson, who everybody was excited about back in September. He had like some nice, he had some nice moments in garbage time in week 1. That's really been it. The snaps have just simply not been there. So he's probably a drop if you haven't done it already.
Yeah, Foreman is a great mention by you, mostly because I just put him in on one of my flex right there. So that shows you how weak things are this week on bye weeks for several good teams. Speaking of good players, I've got my eye here on DJ Moore, and I'm singing the 80s, what might have been song, like that's going over and over and over in my head. Because remember, DJ Moore at one point was part of what the Panthers thought their future would look like. And in order to acquire Bryce Young, they had to give up a wide receiver that has turned out to be somebody very good for the Bears. But more importantly, it's turned out to be a huge problem for the Panthers. They simply haven't had a wide receiver this year that Bryce Young can depend on other than Adam Thielen. And you have to wonder what the offense could have looked like. DJ Moore going out there doing things, even though he doesn't have a quarterback, I can still look at it if I'm DJ Moore and I can say, hey, survive this year. Because we all know that Tyson Bagent isn't going to be the future. We all know at this point it doesn't look like Justin Fields is going to be the future. But there will be a future in Chicago. And presuming that they address quarterback in the draft, which I think is what most of us presume, that quarterback is going to be in a better situation coming in with DJ Moore. Until then, from a fantasy fan standpoint right now, it's a little feast or famine with the quarterback play. I understand that, but I'm still looking at somebody and saying, hey, even with Tyson Bagent against the Raiders, we still saw DJ Moore get open. It still can happen. He still can get the ball. So I got my eye on that. Harmon, Hatless Harmon. I'm shooketh by Hatless Harmon over there just looking like a supermodel on the side. What do you got for us? What are you looking for in this one?
Well, we got a banger of a game here when Fitz is what he's watching is a hypothetical. That's when we're in for a real treat tonight. I'll talk about those pass catchers that DJ Moore left behind or were added after he left in Carolina. Really interesting the last 2 weeks coming off the Panthers bye weeks. You look at the routes run for these guys. Obviously, it's still Adam Thielen up there at the top. And, Thielen is a great case for why wide receiver stats do lie, both good and bad. His targets per route run and stuff like that in Minnesota last year was like, oh, this guy is washed. He's cooked. But he definitely wasn't cooked, and he certainly isn't cooked as a slot receiver where he's mostly been for the Panthers. But I would say his numbers to start this year with Carolina also kind of lied in that he's not really balling out. He's just the only guy here that can get open. I mean, Jonathan Mingo, second on the team in routes run since the bye. He's not really getting open. Hayden Hurst, they're starting to play other tight ends like Tommy Tremble, a holdover. Steven Sullivan, don't even really know who that is. They're playing him in a committee with Hayden Hurst. That acquisition has worked out. DJ Chark has been not getting open and been getting hurt. So it's a lot of bad for the Panthers. And frankly, it's a lot of predictable bad things so far at their pass catching spot. So I know Bryce Young hasn't been good, but a lot of times when I watch Bryce Young, I'm also thinking what do you want him to do in this offense with this protection and these pass catchers? Not a lot of good answers for the rookie there.
Yeah, which is stunning compared to where we thought we would be with Carolina when they drafted him. I think Panthers fans had much better hope. Not a great matchup, but there's always an opportunity to make some cash. So let's see if we can help fatten the bags with a little bit, bring in the props. All right, so what we do here, we find a prop that we like and we figure out if we can help you. Hopefully there's no kicker props. We cannot promise that. All right, we'll stick with Harmon on this one. Harmon, what do you got? Give us a prop.
Yeah, so I mentioned those Panthers pass catchers. I'm going to go ahead and put my money on these Panthers pass catchers. Let me tell you what sports betting is really about, people. It's about your emotions. It's about your feelings. It's not really about making money. And I liked Jonathan Mingo as a prospect. I thought he was a developmental guy, not somebody that was going to hit the NFL field and be ready right away. Certainly hasn't been the case. He's not looked ready. Like I said, he's not really getting open, not getting a lot of separation out there. However, he has been out there. He's been out there on 99% of the snaps in each of the last 2 games. His receiving yard prop in this one is a mere 33.5. I think he can get over 33.5 here tonight against the Chicago Bears with no DJ Chark. And really, again, like I said, sports betting and player props, it's not about making money. That's a cute little side effect. But what I'm really hoping for is just to get a little extra joy out of Mingo, a guy that I liked playing for the Panthers. Thought it was an interesting fit. Hasn't been interesting so far. Maybe it could be mildly interesting tonight, and maybe I could profit $20 off it or something. Please, I don't know.
I like that you're just so rich. I just play these parlays for fun. That's what we've learned about Harmon here. Private island. All right, he takes off the hat. He owns a private island. Okay, so I actually ate some integrity crackers. That's what happened today. I'm going to call it that. And I was thinking of Harmon as I did this because last week as we were talking, Harmon made a very good point that a lot of the bets that are out there and props are out there just don't pay anything. So as I was trying to find a quarterback prop I like, under 1.5 passing touchdowns for Bryce Young was fine. But when I looked at the under 1.5 passing touchdowns for Bryce Young, it just didn't pay anything. So I felt like that was weak. It felt like it was just soft to come in and say, hey, the predictable one that you have to wager too much to make too little is under 1.5. So I decided, gentlemen, I would step things up. In an honor and integrity world, I would turn it into a parlay. So now, what do I got for you? I got Bryce Young under 1.5 passing touchdowns and over 9.5 yards rushing. That's not a huge number. He's hit it 5 of the 7 times. Neither of those bets individually was very good, but when I combined them, I was able to get to plus 152 on it. And I felt like in the world of integrity, simply taking a tiny bet didn't work here. Combining 2 bets, so now all I need is Bryce Young to do what he's done all year. He's going to hit over the 9.5 rushing yards, although he's not a rushing quarterback. And judging on the numbers, he's going to hit the under on passing touchdowns. Everybody makes money. Integrity shown by trying to make it a little more complicated. I know. We're impressed. Barons, what do you got for us on a prop?
I will say that is really bold. And I will also say that the flip side of that Bryce Young touchdown total, if you were to bet like the over on 1.5, I think you get plus 190, which is, I don't know, it's probably not going to happen. He's only done it like once this year. But if you get plus 190, hey, that's something. But that's not my prop. My prop, in fact, is another receiving line for the Panthers. I'm going to go with Chuba Hubbard over 15.5 receiving yards. Here's a fun fact about the Bears, and not fun for me, but perhaps fun for bettors. This team has allowed the most receiving yards to running backs by over 150. It has been a clear weakness for this team. You can think back to all the screen passes that have gone for like 20 yards, 30 yards. Aaron Jones did it. Jaleel McLaughlin did it. People are doing it every week. 14 different running backs have cleared this total against Chicago in 9 games. So like it's usually a couple of different backs doing it each week. Hubbard had 4 catches last week. He's only going to need like 1 or 2 in order to clear 15 yards against the Bears. This is their absolute weakness. Among the non-kicking props, this is probably the surest thing on the board.
Harmon, did you want to share something with the class there? You had a little bit of an eye roll there?
Oh, no, I just mean like, listen, Miles Sanders is certainly having his biggest receiving day of the year now that Barons has put his eyes on Chuba Hubbard here. It's also just back to the Panthers. I mean, my God. But, like, how hilarious is it that the team spends all this money on Miles Sanders and, like, you know what? We're just going to go ahead and bench him for the guy that was already on the roster here in Chuba Hubbard. I mean, what a disastrous rollout for the Carolina Panthers. Hey, Fitz, I also want to give props to you now that we know that you not only are you humble, as we found out pre-show, we know you're jacked, but you also have great integrity. I mean, this is a triple threat of a guy up here in Jason Fitz, people.
I'm glad that you're really starting to see this, Harmon. Like, I don't know, maybe he was taking the hat off, has you seeing things clearer, because the fact that you see how
circulation
I am. Yeah, super
circulation on my brain is what it's so free to just realize how great you are.
I would actually say that it is Fitz's humility that has defined the show to this point in the season.
Wait till we get to the primetime picks. I'm sorry that you losers just can't handle first place Fitz. All right, I just went third person. Let's go. Now it's time for our fantasy game changers for this week, powered by Ram Trucks. You know what we do. It's like the game super password. I'm going to give you a word that we love to associate with Ram Trucks, and then we will see what player we associate with that word. Andy, you are up first, and the word is trustworthy.
Yeah, give me Javonte Williams. He has somewhat quietly been more trustworthy than I think we may have expected entering the season. He doesn't really have a lot of buzz because it's obviously Denver's kind of a joyless offense, right? But his comeback from a multi-ligament knee injury has been truly impressive. Javonte is coming off back-to-back 80-yard rushing efforts. He handled 30 touches in his last game, so workload has been there basically every week. You look back to the game that Denver lost by 50, he still saw 14 chances in that one. So they are using him. We've seen flashes of the old missed tackle ability too. Over his last 3 games, he's picking up 3.1 yards after contact per attempt. He's piling up missed tackles, so he looks a little bit more like the Javonte Williams that we were accustomed to rookie year, prior to the injury. He faces Buffalo this week, and that is a damaged defense that's allowing 4.9 yards per carry on the season. That ranks 30th in the league. So trust Javonte Williams against the Bills this week.
I love that. I'll give you a word here, and the word is powerful. And I will be slightly homer, but also I will be a realist here. Powerful, Josh Jacobs. Look, we're going full Easter. He has risen. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Josh Jacobs start to run the way that we expected Josh Jacobs to run coming into the season. But I think it's particularly noteworthy that after the Giants game, he mentioned the fact that the coaching staff sat down with him, asked him what kinds of runs he wanted to run, what he thought was the best situation for him, and he ends up with 98 yards rushing in that game, was at 100 yards until he took a loss with about 15 seconds left on the clock there. So Josh Jacobs had a bigger hand in what his rushing attempts looked like, and all of a sudden, what do you know? You see an increase in production. Josh Jacobs is becoming a bigger and bigger part of this offense, and especially knowing that they're going up against a Jets team where, frankly, they are not going to want to put the game in Aiden O'Connell's hands. I think that it's powerful to have Josh Jacobs get even a bigger share this week against the Jets. So I feel pretty good about that one. Matt, we got capability. What do you think capability?
Well, I definitely think what we have seen the last couple of weeks with Will Levis under center is that DeAndre Hopkins is certainly still capable of being a high-quality number one-ish receiver in the NFL. He's not the player he used to be. We understand that. That is certainly the case. But he can still be very, very good and not be the player he was at his elite peak. Over the last 2 weeks with Will Levis under center, DeAndre Hopkins has a 40.2% share of the team air yards. And air yard share is critical here because our guy Will Levis is absolutely pushing that thing downfield. He's aggressive. He's got a lot of arm strength. That has certainly been proven in the NFL. Look, I was actually weirdly more impressed with Will Levis against the Pittsburgh Steelers than I was against the Atlanta Falcons when he had 4 passing touchdowns. I think he's looked more just like a comfortable NFL quarterback. The Buccaneers secondary has been getting roasted of late. So I think Will Levis can connect with DeAndre Hopkins on a couple of critical deep passes down the field. Also, Tampa Bay has injuries as well, so everything looks like it's lining up for another big finish here for DeAndre Hopkins.
Love your point on Levis, by the way. You're 1,000% right. I totally agree with you. And also, I'm going to throw myself under the bus. Last week in this very segment, I sat here and I told everybody that luxury was Taysom Hill. And then, like an idiot, I forgot to put Taysom Hill in my lineup in either of the leagues that I have him in. And then all he did was score points for me on the bus. So what I'm telling you is listen to what we're telling you. And also, I need to take my own advice. No matter what you're looking for in a light-duty truck, the 2023 Ram 1500 has got you covered. Score yours at Ram.com. Now, I could hit these guys up for help all the time. You are hitting us up for help. It's hashtag AskFFL, so we're going to help you. Make your pick. We're going to look at some tough flex decisions with multiple players for users submitted through social media and, of course, on the fantasy app out there. And we will start with question number 1 coming from Panda68. I have a good problem. Flex 2, tight end 1, PPR, which 3? Laporta, Kincaid, Cooper, Ridley, Myers. Hashtag make your pick. Hashtag AskFFL. What do you think on this one, Barons?
Well, I think Panda68 has some receivers with some brutal matchups for the most part, right? Myers gets the Jets corners. There's no place to hide there. Mark Cooper's got the Ravens this week. I'm actually probably starting both of the tight ends. Laporta, this is going to shock you. He's my number 1 tight end on the week. Laporta is facing the league's most generous pass defense. The Chargers give up almost 8 yards per attempt. And then Kincaid, he's got upwards of, it's like 26, 27 targets over the last 3 games. His catch rate on the season is like 90%. It's nearly everything. So I'm starting both of the tight ends, and then I'm probably going to go Ridley. He's at least got a neutral matchup. Obviously, he's been a roller coaster on the season, but he's at least got a neutral matchup where the other two it's brutal.
That's my fault for asking Barons about, anything involving Laporta. If we turn this show into a drinking game, his shot would be anytime he says something positive about Laporta. All right, let's go to the next one. Dennis says, half PPR, pick 2, Ramondre, McLaurin, Cooper, and Godwin. Hashtag AskFFL. All right, what do you think on this one, Harmon?
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and remove Ramondre Stevenson here. Don't think he's in consideration. I think these receivers are in much better spots. Amari Cooper's matchup is tough, so I'm probably going to say he's not here in the consideration either. I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin and Chris Godwin. I know Godwin's been a little frustrating from like a touchdown department. He's kind of a positive touchdown regression candidate. It's a great matchup against Tennessee, and I do think that game could be a little more fantasy friendly than we're thinking, just because Will Levis, like I said, pushing the ball downfield against a weaker secondary. I think that will bring a lot more pass attempts out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and some goodness going to Chris Godwin's direction.
Does Ramondre's smile in his headshot make you rethink this at all? Because let me just be clear, like here, that is a staggeringly good smile right there.
I don't know. I think that when you look at the way he's smiling, it's a little too forced, and like he's got a secret behind that smile. And like, I don't have any confidence that Bill O'Brien's actually calling a good offense here. This is not so good. So yeah, no, the smile does not move the needle for me.
That is, again, the expert analysis you can only get here. Next, Cardzilla, Dotson, Stevenson, Kirk, Douglas, Gabe Davis. I love that he gave us first last name for Gabe. PPR needs to start 2, #AskFFL. What do you got on this one, Barons?
See, I look at Ramondre's smile and I see joy, I see sincerity, and I see a guy that I'm probably going to start from this collection of receivers. You get workload certainty here. Had a touchdown last week, over 120 total yards last week. Not in a bad spot at all against Indianapolis. And man, the other one is tough. I'm probably leaning Christian Kirk. The targets and the yardage have at least been consistent, if not always spectacular. He leads the Jags in receiving yards on the season. If I felt like I was an underdog and I really needed like a Hail Mary play, I might go Gabe Davis over Kirk. But if I think it's a kind of neutral matchup, I'm going Kirk here.
You guys can keep the questions coming at us with #AskFFL. In the meantime, last week, Josh Dobbs was one of the best stories in the entire league, not just for how he played for the Vikings, but for everything else that happened, being traded only days in advance, working on his snap count cadence on the sideline, not knowing the players in the huddle. We talked about it all week, but interestingly, this week on Eckler's Edge, Austin talked about it from a player standpoint, what he saw that was so incredible there. Check some of this out.
This guy barely knows. He doesn't know his teammate's name. There are clips from Sunday of him literally learning the cadence of the offense from the center. And despite all that, they still beat the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday. Kevin O'Connell calls it one of the most impressive things he's ever seen in his entire career, the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Can you just kind of tell us from a player's perspective how freaking difficult that is?
Yeah, wow. Very, very impressive. And I think it just goes to show the character of Josh Dobbs and how dedicated he is to this game and making sure that he's in a position to take advantage of his opportunity. And football is football. And so there's cover 5, there's cover 2, there's cover 4, there's cover 1. At the quarterback position, if you're really key in on it, you can say whatever. The coverages are the same, right? We know what the defense is. But, for him, actually being in tune with his offense enough to actually go and put points on the board and actually move the ball efficiently. Being able to even call the plays, just reading it off a wristband, like you still have to go out there and look around, assess the defense, know the checks, and hike the ball. Within that, you can't forget the play. And if you haven't been memorizing these things like we usually do with training camp and all these other weeks that we've had, then it's tough. That's so tough. And so, man, yeah, very, very impressive showing. Shout out to Josh Dobbs, man. Keep it going.
All right, let's take a look at some of the fantasy chatter this week. The most talked about players in the Yahoo Fantasy app. Justin Jefferson, I like this. Gavin says if he plays this week, he's not worth starting. He probably won't get much targets. Vikes might want to go light on him first week back. I don't know how we would know that, but also really, I want your thoughts, guys, on this one. Kyler Murray, Dustin says, quote, I'm really liking Murray's chances of playing to his talents the rest of the season. With Kyler essentially playing for his future home in the NFL, he'll be a fantastic fantasy quarterback for the second half. I don't know, Harmon, were you buying that?
I kind of am weirdly intrigued by this Kyler Murray Arizona Cardinals offense. I really believe a lot of what you were talking about in the pre-show, Fitz, that our colleague Charles Robinson is selling us, and what the Cardinals are selling him and a lot of other insiders, is that they really want this to work with Kyler Murray. I know that we're all obsessed with, we got to tank for the quarterback, we got to tank for this draft pick. Well, you know what? Like, Kyler Murray's been a pretty good quarterback at the NFL level so far. It's not as simple as just like, all right, we get a rookie quarterback and we ship off Kyler Murray. Like, I think their best path to future success is if they win a few games down the stretch and Kyler Murray gives them some good play. And there are intriguing players around him. Like, Marquise Brown might be one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. He's been a great zone beater since he came into the league, and him and Kyler have a nice little connection there. Trey McBride, it looks like he's showing some signs of life. I'm going to talk about Michael Wilson, the rookie receiver, later in the show. James Conner could be coming back soon. Like, I think Josh Dobbs, who Eckler and I just talked about, he showed pretty well in this offense and had some buoyancy and viability in this offense. And Kyler Murray, when right, might not run like he used to after this injury, but when he's right as a thrower, he can bring a lot of juice to this offense. I'm pretty excited to watch it.
Aaron, you in on this one?
Yeah, no, I like that call, and I actually think this is one of those cases where, I mean, look, we got Tua out this week, we got Mahomes out this week, we got Hurts out this week. I'm not waiting to play Kyler Murray where I've stashed him. Like, I'm rolling him out there in a couple of one quarterback leagues. And yeah, I think if I'm the Cardinals and I look at this draft class where I might be picking, maybe let's just plug Marvin Harrison Jr. in there and see what that looks like and roll with Kyler Murray. I mean, he's great. Like, that would be a situation that would complement Hollywood Brown really well. He's got some weapons. I'm interested in right now for Kyler Murray, and I'm interested down the road.
I think I just pieced this together as you guys were talking, but I talked to Michael Lombardi earlier today for Zero Blitz, one of our shows on Yahoo Sports, and he pointed out that the contract really kicks in with full guarantees the Cardinals can't do anything about if Kyler Murray gets injured. So that's why there's a huge risk in playing him. I think that only speaks to what Charles Robinson is telling us and what you guys are saying too. If the Cardinals didn't believe that Kyler Murray was the future, I don't think they'd be putting him out there. They'd be protecting their investment. So I expect them to put him out there and see what he can actually do with this offense. And the best case scenario is you find out you got your quarterback and you don't have to go back into the draft to do it. All right, keep the comments coming to us. Again, hashtag AskFFL. We're going to help you guys with your lineups in just a little bit. But in the meantime, I have to remind everybody one more time, there is early football on Sunday. For the last time this season, there is early football this Sunday. The Colts taking on the Patriots in Germany, a 9:30 a.m. Eastern kickoff. This is one of those games that 10 years ago, Colts-Patriots in Germany would have been just, how could they do that? And now it's like, okay, I'll wake up midway through, I'll eat my waffles, and I'll figure out what's going on here. But we do have, at least football early in the morning. So, Matt, what are you looking for in this one?
Yeah, I was the only one of us on the show, Doc, brave enough to claim a Patriots topic here, a Patriots exclusive topic, should I say. Demario Douglas is a fantastic PPR scam the rest of the way. And shout out to the guys from Underdog Fantasy, Hayden Winks and Josh Norris, for coining the fantastic phrase PPR scam, because you out there, if you play in a full PPR league, you've done this before. You're like, all right, who's the small, short area slot receiver that's never going to probably go for 100 yards, or if they're going to go for 100 yards, they're going to need like 13 catches to do it. I think Demario Douglas is that type of player. That's the PPR scam right there. It's going to be a lot of short yard stuff, a lot of like underneath targets. I do like the way they have included him in the pre-snap motion packages, some of these RPO looks, and Mac Jones has said, hey, that's what I'm comfortable doing. Bill O'Brien and I have integrated more and more of that in the offense as time has gone on. These two guys working together. So I think Demario Douglas is a critical player for this offense down the stretch, which says a lot about where they are as an offense. And quite frankly, he's the only guy that can beat man coverage on this team. I mean, Juju ain't doing that, never has done that. Devontae Parker never has done that. Jalen Reagor, I mean, you need me to say any more about how that goes? So yeah, I think Demario Douglas is going to be a beautiful, fantastic PPR scam rest of season.
Yeah, well, and I'll give you a thought on that as you mentioned the wide receivers, because it sort of leans into how I feel about both teams from a fantasy football standpoint and from an overall football standpoint. And that is that both of these receivers, I wouldn't touch any receiver for either of these teams moving forward. And it's not about the quarterbacks. Like, we always want to make it about the quarterbacks. I think it's about the wide receivers. And the fact is, when you look at the way these receivers play, when you look at the inability to get open, when you look at the inability to trust the offenses in general to get anything done, it speaks to the fact that neither of these teams are good enough to win football games, because I don't believe with receivers like Smith-Schuster in that situation, you can win anymore. And when you are constantly in an NFL where you have to be able to battle with points, you have to be able to move the football, throwing the football, you can't do it. You cannot be a great team anymore without a great wide receiver. And if you look at the rest of the AFC, if you look at the teams that you can actually rely on, they all have a guy. They all have somebody that you can turn around and say, hey, whether it's AJ or whether it's Jamar, like there are guys, there are beasts all over the field in the NFL right now that you know you can trust. And that one person changes the dynamic for the entire passing game. One Tyreek changes the way you have to defend the entire Dolphins offense. One Jamar does that for the Bengals. There is no guy for either of these teams that can accomplish what Justin Jefferson accomplishes for the Vikings. And as a result, I can't trust any of these receivers, and I can't trust either of these offenses. I'm out on them, not just because of their quarterbacks, but also because they lack the weapons to give any sort of reliable football.
I cannot allow this. I cannot allow this Michael Pittman disrespect to stand. I mean, my God, the guy is a pretty good player. He's not A.J. Brown. He's not Justin Jefferson, but he's like a quality NFL wide receiver one. And by the way, with no Josh Downs has been fantastic. If Josh Downs was going to play in this game and you were saying these type of things, Fitz, I'd walk off the set right now. I might go out the window over here, okay? That would be insane. I knew Pittman's a good player, man.
I knew Pittman would be your clapback, and this is what I would say. Pittman is a great T. Higgins. But you ain't going to go out and you're not going to win and put up the type of numbers you need to put up with T. Higgins being your only one. But if Pittman was the other guy in an offense that also included an A.J. Brown, now we're talking about something wildly different. In today's NFL, I genuinely believe to have a dynamic, oh my God, and this is like for fantasy, any of us, I've got Tyreek in most of my leagues. It's the reason I win football games. I got lucky. I got Tyreek, right? Like you got to have that one guy. Like Waddle is fine. Waddle's very good. But if Waddle doesn't have Tyreek, do we really think that suddenly Waddle's going to be the guy that lifts the Dolphins through? Like there is the best case scenario for the Colts is that they have the other guy and they still don't have the stud that they have to have. That's my count. I knew you'd come with me with Pittman.
I'm with you. I'm with you overall. It's a good point. I don't want like all of these guys that we just talked about with the Patriots and then Michael Pittman being in like the same sentence. Like I can't have, all right, yeah, these two receiver rooms are really rough. Jalen Reagor is playing significant snaps for the Patriots. Like the Colts are all right if it's Michael Pittman, and obviously no Josh Downs does hurt.
Yeah. I'll give you there in different categories. Andy, we got to get to you. I'm sorry, we keep cutting you off.
Well, I hope that you caught the signature humility from Fitz there with the I've got Tyreek Hill in every league. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, nice. Winners win. I can't help it. Winners win. Go ahead.
Oh, I knew that was going to be fun. The whole discussion actually just makes me miss what we would have had with a healthy Anthony Richardson, right, and Pittman and a healthy Josh Downs. Like that looked so good for just a moment there. The only point that I want to make is that, and this is important for the Zach Moss managers, Jonathan Taylor now firmly, and I would say irrevocably back at the top of the Colts backfield. If you have him on a roster, you can rejoice. These are his snap shares over the past 5 weeks: 15%. 42%, 50%, 61%, 72%. Not everything that kind of looks like a trend is actually a trend, but this one feels pretty solid to me. Taylor had 23 touches, a touchdown last week, 95 rushing yards the week before, 120 total yards the week before that. He is back. And then the flip side, of course, is that Zach Moss, who was so good earlier in the season, he barely played last week. So he's impossible to trust right now. He's coming off a game in which he played 13 snaps.
I hope Zach Moss gets a chance somewhere else, given the way he played before this happened. But it's a great point by you. All right, we got to move on now to primetime. We just have to move on to primetime picks at this point. You know what we do? We pick from each of the primetime games: the Thursday night game, the Sunday night game, the Monday night game. We must take only one player from each of those games. That's the way this goes. And we go in snake draft form. The current standings: Andy Behrens in third place, Matt Harmon in second place, Jason Fitz in third to last. Really, it's just third to last for Jason Fitz. Like he's just sitting there somehow reached one. But like look at the points last week. Andy, I doubled you. Do you know how the game is played, Andy?
You can tell I'm an Iowa fan, by the way, because I see 26 points and I'm like, wow, in 1 week? Are you kidding me? That's awesome.
Good Lord. Andy,
All right.
have some self-respect. People can see this.
The overall, it should be reminded, the total points is the tiebreaker, though, and it is very close in total points and overall for two of us in this, out of the three of us so far. So there's plenty of time. All right, so the games: Panthers at Bears, Jets at Raiders, Broncos at Bills. Andy, you are up first. Mr. Barons, who would you like to take with the first pick in this week's primetime draft?
Yeah, can I just tell you the sneaky terrible part about finishing last in this thing, and I'm just getting stomped here, is that I am awarded the first pick, great, which typically isn't actually much better than the third pick, and then it means that I'm not taking anybody again until 6. This has been a nightmare. Give me Stephon Diggs. He's probably the best pure flex option of anybody playing in any of these games. I would also consider Breece Hall here, but I'm just going, I don't know. I got to go upside. I got to go Diggs. He's better than all these other guys.
All right, Harmon, you're up next. What do you got?
Yeah, I, like an idiot, went on a long rant in last week's segment about, the strategy of it. And all right, I won't take a running back. I'll let Fitz take the first one. And then Eckler proceeds to dunk on me all night. And I lose last week with Breece Hall. I mean, so let me do one more strategy note here. I'm going to take somebody from tonight's game. I don't want to have the dregs of like the Panthers receiver room or the Bears running backs left here. So I'll go ahead and take DJ Moore off the board here. I maintain that DJ Moore's Thursday night game against the Commanders is the only reason that Fitz is winning this contest. Maybe some of that luck will come to me.
I mean, I'm just saying I'm winning in weeks and points. But yeah, it's fine. The points I'll give you, DJ might have helped a little bit with, just a tiny bit that. All right, so that means I'm on the clock. Look, I think strategy has to play into this because I don't want to get stuck. It doesn't come back to me for a long time. I got to take somebody on the Thursday night game. Otherwise, I am absolutely up a creek. So I'll take Thielen. That makes sense to me. It's the last weapon that I think I can even slightly trust in this game. Then we wrap around, and this one hurts my heart to do, but I mean, no matter what has happened for the Raiders over the course of the last few weeks, the one consistent is that running backs that take on the Raiders put up some big numbers. I think Breece Hall is going to do that again. Even Coach Pierce alluded to the fact that not stopping the run is unacceptable, but the Raiders have had no answer for it. Running backs have been putting up pretty beefy numbers against them. So as much as I would love to see Breece Hall not go off on my beloved Raiders, I think he probably puts up numbers win or lose. So I'll take Breece there. All right, it's back to you, Harmon. What do you got?
Well, listen, I believe in Antonio Pierce and the words that he is saying there for your Raiders. I mean, he talks about, even at the end of the game, Pierce says, we wanted to get in there and get him 100 yard, get him to the 100-yard mark, get him to the century mark for Josh Jacobs. We'll keep grinding on that. That's something, obviously, I don't take for granted. It's hard to do in the National Football League. We haven't done that this year. Josh Jacobs, per Antonio Pierce, going to go under 100 yards. He's going to go over 100 yards this week, and he's going to do it on my team.
All right. So there we go. I like the Jake. I love that both of us are going to be sitting here, watching that game, and I kind of want you to win now. All right. So that brings you back to Andy. What do you got on the Barons?
There it is. All the good options are gone. Well, I've been telling you guys that I've been kind of the king of like unrealized air yards in this competition to this point. So let's keep it going and give me Garrett Wilson. He's got 38 targets over his last 3 games. Those are numbers that we haven't seen since like Puka Nakua's prime. Wilson feels like a perfect Barons player in this contest. He is going to get all of the opportunities and none of the results. And then next player for me, I'm gonna go D'Onta Foreman in tonight's game. With all due respect to Foreman, he might be the worst real life player who will ever be selected in this contest. I have to allow that. But he's coming off a 20 carry game. He's rushed for 80 yards in 2 of his last 3. He's been respectable as a receiver as well. And the matchup with Carolina, of course, is juicy.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Harmon. Go ahead. Juicy got worked into the show. Son of a biscuit. All right. Go ahead.
I mean, Javonte Williams in a pretty juicy spot here, too. You look at the Buffalo Bills, their run defense has started to fall apart. Their entire defense has started to fall apart. And he was getting loaded up with touches before the bye. So give me Javonte Williams here. I'm going all running backs here in my second and third pick. And I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, I'm going to need to check in with the powers that be because I feel like I've picked last in this draft basically every week for the last couple of months. And just once, I would like one chance. I mean, just once I'd like one chance to feel like I love my last player, but that's okay. That's okay. Cortland Sutton. I'll go Sutton on the Monday Night Football game because I have trust issues with Gabe Davis and because every time I've taken Cook in this competition, that hasn't worked for me either. So now I'm just looking around saying, hey, the one guy that's getting targets that, you know, maybe can put up, I don't know. I don't feel great about it. I'm going to need Breece Hall to go off and score a bunch of points in a loss, obviously, to the Raiders, and Thielen to do some good things for me. I don't feel, but this is the burden when every year you're picking last in the draft. Every week I'm picking last in the draft. This is just the heavy lifting I have to do as the weekly champion around here.
So humble. Moving, really, your humility.
And you can see his muscles popping out too as the humility is. I mean, just so jacked, so humble.
You know, this shirt fit before I was working out this hard. I just can't do anything about it. Each week, Sal Vetri offers up unique fantasy advice here on the show. We're going to check back in with Sal now for his 7 key findings for Week 10, which includes one player that went from the naughty list to the nice list in just 1 week. Check it out.
These are the 7 key findings that will help you win your Week 10 matchup. Finding number 1 is the best spot of the week. And this is for Tony Pollard, who once again scored less than 10 points last week. But we warned you about this. We said on this program that Tony Pollard was in the sketchy spot of the week against the Eagles defense a week ago. But oh, how quickly the tables have turned, because now he's a 16-point favorite at home against the Giants' bottom 10 run defense. And in similar matchups in his career, Pollard averages 16.5 fantasy points per game. Finding number 2 is the sketchy spot of the week. And this takes us to the Browns backfield and Jerome Ford, who's actually coming off of season high usage. Last week against the Cardinals, he saw season highs in overall touches, snaps, and targets. But now this week, he takes on his division rival, the Baltimore Ravens, who are arguably the best defense in football and definitely have a top 10 run defense. Baltimore is only allowing 13 fantasy points in total to opposing backfields this season. Finding number 3 is the pickup and play of the week. And this is the Commanders quarterback Sam Howell, who continued his success in week 9, throwing for 325 yards. Howell has benefited from the Commanders leading the league in pass rate. They're throwing 72% of the time and on a historic pace. His 39 pass attempts per game are on pace to shatter the NFL record for pass attempts in a season. And this week he takes on a Seattle secondary that's allowing an above average 255 passing yards per game. Finding number 4 is the sell high of the week. And this is for Gus Edwards, who just had 17 fantasy points this past week and over his last 3 games is averaging 22 points per contest. So why is he a sell high? Well, there's a few reasons. First off, he has 6 touchdowns in the last 3 games. That's not sustainable. And the second point is rookie Keaton Mitchell was involved last week, not just in blowout run, but in the first half. Mitchell was highly productive, and Coach Harbaugh said that there's going to be more of a rotation between the 3 backs moving forward. Finding number 5 is the number 1 trade target. And this is for Cooper Kupp, who hasn't topped 7 fantasy points in a month, but we have to add more context. Last week, his quarterback was Brett Rippon, who struggled with accuracy, and the week before that, Matt Stafford got hurt. So Kupp's struggles have been overstated, and now he enters the bye week. The fantasy manager in your league who has him might be desperate for a trade. Finding number 6 takes us to a player who is trending up. And this is Rachaad White, who has proven me wrong because over the last 3 weeks, his receiving production has stayed consistent. He's averaged 5.7 targets during this time, which has led to over 17 points per game. Now, this week is a true test because he'll take on the Titans defense that allows the fewest receptions to opposing running backs. If White clears this hurdle, we can consider him matchup proof moving forward. Finding number 7 takes us to a player who is trending down. And this is the Packers wide receiver Christian Watson, who over 4 healthy starts is averaging just 5.8 points per game. Only 50% of Watson's targets are catchable this year. This ranks bottom 10 amongst all receivers in the NFL. And to make matters worse, Watson suffered 3 different injuries on a contested catch late in the game in week 9. It's unclear if these injuries will force him to miss time, so track that. And then there's even another issue. It's Aaron Jones. Jones returned to full health last week and he earned 20 touches. And ideally, the Packers just want to lean on him as much as they can and throw less, which will hurt Watson. So these are the key findings that'll help you win your week 10 matchup. All that's left to do is for you to take this information and use it to smack around your opponents this week.
All right, now, Sal, you just mentioned, by the way, Sal looking dapper. The turtleneck look, I mean, Sal just looks like James Bond. If you're casting this thing, Sal's your guy. All right, so everybody wants some help right now with trade deadlines. So we figured we'd take a look at some trades that people are asking about, get your opinion on them, Sal. So we'll pull up the first one coming here from Peterson, who is in a half PPR. So got the offer of sending Tony Pollard and Puka Nacua for Austin Eckler and Kyron Williams. So what do you think on that one?
I appreciate the compliment, Fitz. Thank you, first of all. And then I think this one's really close. We have to keep in mind a couple of things when we're trading at this point in the season. Players that have had some bye weeks, guys who are on IR, and the fantasy playoff schedule. So in this trade, Kyren Williams is somebody to point out. Won't get him back until week 12 at best. And it's a high ankle sprain, which usually affects the production afterwards for a running back. So that's important to point out. And then that fantasy playoff schedule, Tony Pollard, he has a pretty good one. Now, it's been rough if you've been a fantasy owner of him. That should change this week, though, because he's a 16-point favorite. He's going out there against the Giants, where he had a nice matchup against earlier this year, put up over 20 points, his best game of the year. And also, in the fantasy playoffs, he gets the Bills in a brutal defense the last month due to injuries, and the Dolphins, which should be a game that has a lot of points, that helps starting running back. So I'm leaning on the side with Tony Pollard. Puka Nacua, even with Cooper Kupp back, still seeing elite target shares, like over 30% of the targets in that offense. I kind of want to keep that side. I don't want to do this deal. It's very close, but because of that Kyren Williams uncertainty, I'm just going to hold on to what I believe are 2 top 15 players the rest of the season.
All right, let's take a look at the next one from Colin. Colin wants to know, he's receiving Garrett Wilson, Bijan Robinson to give up Kenneth Walker III and Terry McLaurin. What do you think on this one?
Yeah, so this is kind of one of those deals where you look at it and you're like, all right, we got 2 wide receivers who are similar in tier, kind of the way you look at them. Same thing for the running back. So is either team getting improvement here? Well, one guy stands out when I look at this. Who's going to get the best player? And that's Kenneth Walker, in my opinion. He's the only guy here that I think the rest of the season is a top 20 player. The last couple of weeks, look, it has been pretty rough, but there's context we got to add there. 2 weeks ago, he came into that game limited by injury. All right, so you give him a break. And last week, it was a blowout. They were down 2 to 3 to 4 scores. They abandoned the run. So moving forward, I think I like him the rest of the year. His playoff schedule ahead of a Bijan Robinson who's splitting work. You look at the wide receivers here, and you're getting a lot of volume out of Garrett Wilson, but almost half of it, they've been uncatchable targets. So how much does that really matter, the extra 4 or 5 targets a game compared to, say, a Terry McLaurin, who he's in an offense that is throwing at a historic rate? Those guys are pretty close, but because of Kenneth Walker, I'll take that side of the deal.
All right, let's get the next one up here from Josh coming in as we look at some of the trades out here. Sent, Ridley, Russ, received, Kyler, Hollywood, counting on the upside of the OKAZ stack. What do you think?
Yeah, I like this. I like this offer, actually. Yeah, I want to take this deal with these Arizona guys. There's a couple things here. Earlier in the year, you could have had a really nice strategy in your draft. Last round of the draft, you select Kyler, you put him in your IR spot, and you pick up another guy just like that. You got a guy on your team, but you didn't do that, so you got to send the trade. That's fine. The only thing you have to keep in mind, week 14, the Cardinals have their bye week. You won't have either of these guys. So that's one thing you're kind of forfeiting here, because the other players in Calvin Ridley and Russ, they're coming off of their bye week right now. So keep that in mind. But as long as you have somebody to replace them, or you think you're already in your fantasy playoffs and you're fine, do this deal, because Kyler Murray is a league winner, averages 21 points per game. That would rank 3rd amongst quarterbacks this year.
All right, let's get one more in here from Chris. Chris asking about Chris Olave and DeAndre Swift. For Tank Dell, Javonte Williams, I have Stroud as my quarterback. What say you, Sal Vetri?
Yeah, so I think this might be the easiest one here. I want to hold on to the Olave and Swift side, but I do like what's happening on the other side of this deal. The league mate in this league with Tank Dell. He was the highest scoring receiver last week. He's trying to sell high on him. That's exactly what you should be doing, so round of applause there, but do not fall for it. I still want Chris Olave here. He's a top 15 receiver the rest of the season. He's averaging over 9 targets per game. And when he gets to the fantasy playoffs, he gets teams like the Giants, the Bucks, and the Rams. That's his exact schedule. They're all bottom half of the league secondaries. If you go to the running back side of this one, DeAndre Swift, he's still commanding a very strong role. Jalen Hurts just messed up his knee. Maybe that leads to more checkdowns, less rushing at the goal line potentially for a couple of weeks. And in the fantasy playoffs, DeAndre Swift gets the Giants, and he also gets the Cardinals. Those are maybe the 2 best matchups you could have as a running back.
You can get more Sal on the Yahoo Fantasy app, obviously, throughout the week. Follow him on social media at Sal Vetri DFS. Now let's bring Sal in with the rest of the guys as we do some play calling. You guys know the deal. We're going to get some thoughts from everybody along the way. We'll bring the first question in from Rodrigo. A cool name. Says Jerome Ford or Christian Watson in the flex PPR. What do you think, Harmon?
Yeah, we're not playing Christian Watson, man. Like Sal mentioned, got a bunch of different injuries. He has not been a particularly good player so far this year. His quarterback has not been good. The volume doesn't really matter to me. I'd like to not really be invested in any of the non-Aaron Jones players in Green Bay. So I would go with Jerome Ford, who had a pretty decent role last week. Once Pierre Strong was removed, like it was mostly just Kareem Hunt and Jerome Ford. So he's kind of the clear option to me in that debate.
All right, let's bring the next one up from Paulo, maybe Bancaro, I don't know. It says, Will Levis or Baker Mayfield? What do you think, Barons?
Yeah, I've actually got him back-to-back in the ranks, and not buried in the ranks either. So this is a good question. It's a tight call. I want Levis here against a Tampa Bay defense that was obviously, we just saw him get lit up by C.J. Stroud, right? That could definitely happen again. Should be a great spot for Levis, for Hopkins. You heard Matt's points on DeAndre Hopkins earlier. I also think Levis, again, to Matt's point earlier in the show, he looked really good last week in a game where he didn't make a lot of fantasy noise, but that was really impressive. Kind of a nice consolidation week for him. So I think he's got the better matchup, and I'm kind of excited by the skill set.
All right, Sal, you get this one from Jim. Jim asking, do we go Madison or Foreman with Herbert out? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Deontay Foreman tonight. Last week, he ended up seeing a season-high 74% of the carries in this backfield. Now, without Khalil Herbert on the year, he's getting 16 opportunities per game. That's really strong, and it's nice that he's coming into a matchup that you could take advantage of against these Panthers, linebackers, the defense in general. Second most fantasy points allowed to the position. That's going to be beneficial for Foreman. I'll take him tonight in an easier matchup than what Alexander Madison has against the Saints on Sunday.
All right, the next one goes to Harmon. We'll get one more in here from Scott saying, hi, guys. Hi, Scott. Curtis Samuel, Josh Reynolds, or Wan'Dale Robinson as my wide receiver 4. What do you think, Harmon?
Oh, man, kind of down bad here with this one. I don't really love Wan'Dale Robinson generally. Again, he is the peak PPR scam, what we talked about earlier. I think Josh Reynolds' role is starting to decline a little bit. If Curtis Samuel is active, he would be the clear choice to me in this one. I know he's obviously dealing with a little bit of an injury right now. I can't do Wan'Dale Robinson in the Tommy DeVito offense. So if there's no Curtis Samuel, I think you got to go Josh Reynolds there. But Samuel would be the preferred option if he's healthy.
All right, keep the questions coming. Hashtag AskFFL. In the meantime, it's time for a quick break here on Fantasy Football Live. When we come back, we will hear from Amon-Ra St. Brown on the Lions and their continued turnaround, what it means for him to be part of something so special. Welcome back. Let's take a look at the injury report coming out of practices today, who we're monitoring for the entire weekend. Some big names on here that impact everybody. Kenneth Walker III did not practice. Dameon Pierce, ankle, did not practice today. T. Higgins, hamstring, was injured in practice yesterday. Rap sheet, Ian Rappaport is saying that it's expected he will miss the game against the Texans. Sources say he'll be evaluated on a week-to-week basis moving forward. And Nico Collins, calf, limited Wednesday, did not practice today. So I don't know, guys. When I keep looking at this, I was just talking about T. Higgins a minute ago, but this feels like a strange year for the Bengals where they just haven't necessarily been able to get everybody healthy. When they have, they've looked great. This T. Higgins thing, Barons, has me a little concerned.
Yeah, this is brutal. Like we've had just a little bit of a glimpse of what it looks like when they're all healthy and the whole thing is fully operational. And now on top of Higgins probably missing this week, Jamar Chase dealing with a back injury. The way he's talking about his back injury is, I don't know, it's kind of rough. The good news here is that Joe Burrow is back to being Joe Burrow, right? And that's been really exciting. He's obviously moving really well in the pocket. Assuming that Chase is good to go, Tyler Boyd, total pro. He's been really good before. There's still enough here, but man, T. Higgins just unlocks so much for this offense. It's really a shame. And there's no plug and play exactly, other than perhaps Tyler Boyd.
Yeah, and I'm just getting the update now. Kenneth Walker III did not practice yesterday. He did log a full practice today. So we will see what that means for his share moving forward. All right, so enough. I love letting you guys get some stuff off your chest. And sometimes there are narratives that take over, and I know you guys get a little fiery, a little fired up there. So we figured we'd have the opportunity for you to go off and say enough already on some things you're sick of. And this, I mean, just goes straight to Harmon. Like, this is right down the lane of hatless Harmon. He's ready. He's fired up. He looks proper, but he is ready to go after people. Harmon, what are you sick of?
Yeah, this is like a little bit of a preemptive enough already, because I am sure we are going to be getting a ton of whining about the Lions running backs. Oh no, David Montgomery, he's not getting as much work as he did before early in the season. Good. Now that Jahmyr Gibbs is broken out. Oh, Jahmyr Gibbs had all these touches, but now David Montgomery's back and it's ruined. I don't care, all right? You probably have gotten the best that you're going to get out of these two running backs. That's life. That's the way it works. David Montgomery had his best games to start the season when Jahmyr Gibbs was getting kind of eased in. Congratulations. You've already profited by having David Montgomery on your team, and he's going to have some fine weeks going forward. It's just not going to be like it was early in the season, because Dan Campbell has said Jahmyr Gibbs has earned more work. He has earned like a little bit of a promotion here because he's starting to develop. He came on a little slow. He's a rookie. That happens. You had his big breakout games when David Montgomery wasn't playing. But Dave Montgomery's going to play, and he's going to get a ton of work too. I think both of these guys can be viable as running back twos. So set your expectations, get those in check, and be okay with it, all right? Like, sometimes being okay with stuff, you just got to accept the reality of what it is. I don't want to hear any whining about these two players. It's going to be fine.
I don't know. I want the whining. If he gets that voiceover work every week, you should do cartoons. Andy, give me something that you're tired of. Enough already.
Yeah, if you're playing the FFL drinking game at home, Harmon did the random fantasy manager voice. You got to chug. Those are the rules. I have had quite enough of the Lamar Jackson slander. Thank you very much. Whenever he has a quiet week, and okay, he was relatively quiet last week, the complaints just flood our notifications. Listen, Lamar has been awesome this year. I'm sorry that his team crumpled up and discarded the Seahawks last week so he didn't have to pass for 400 yards or whatever you were hoping for, but he has been awesome. He's currently the fantasy QB4, so his ADP pegged his fantasy value perfectly this season. Also, by the way, he's plus 400 for MVP right now. He's among the favorites at basically every betting website. He's also a couple weeks removed from a 4-touchdown game in which he passed for 357 yards. It was one of 3 games this season in which he's topped 30 fantasy points. Other fun facts. If the season ended today, his completion percentage would be the 5th highest in NFL history. He's also on pace for nearly 3,700 passing yards, over 800 rushing yards. This is pretty close to a historic season that you guys are complaining about. I realize, again, that some of you are worried like his team's defense is just going to squash opponents all year, but you look at the back half of their schedule late in this year, they've got some tough matchups, and they're going to have to play. They're going to have to go all out. They got Cincinnati, they got the Chargers, Jacksonville, San Francisco, Miami. Listen, Lamar is a great player who is actually playing his best football right now. He's in a great situation. We're no longer accepting complaints.
Harmon, you want to get one more off your chest and one more? Enough already.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I'm always ready for another enough already. I'll kind of echo Andy's sentiments there, but in a kind of Bud Light version on Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars passing offense, because it's not been quite as successful from a fantasy perspective as Lamar Jackson has been. Actually, it was kind of shocking that I saw our colleague Scott Pianowski tweet out today that Josh Dobbs, shout out to Josh Dobbs, all respect to Josh Dobbs, has cleared 20 fantasy points in 4 games this year, and Trevor Lawrence hasn't done it once, which again is very surprising, and I get it has been frustrating with Trevor Lawrence so far. It's been frustrating some weeks with Calvin Ridley. However, Trevor Lawrence on the season ranks 7th in passing success rate. Now, he does rank 14th in EPA per dropback. I think a lot of that is like success rate is a stability metric. It's a down and distance. It's a moving the chains metric. And that has been the case with Trevor Lawrence. We just haven't necessarily seen a ton of big plays, like the big positive plays. like you would kind of have your EPA boosted in that sense. But I do think we see that in the back half of the year with Trevor Lawrence. Calvin Ridley's more integrated in the offense. They can kind of mix up his role, maybe not just give him curls and comebacks and go routes as the outside receiver. So I'm kind of saying enough already with the complaints about these guys, because again, I think your expectations should have been adjusted down by now from when we got way, way, way too hyped, myself included, in the preseason. So your expectations have been dialed back to realistic, but I still think there's a lot of upside with these two guys rest of the season. So enough already with our Jaguars complaints.
God, I just love listening to the two of you go off. We need to do that more often, and agree with everything you said. They're brilliant points, gentlemen. In the meantime, nobody's saying enough already about the Detroit Lions. We all know that. And in fact, they've gone from forgotten to phenomenon. This week, I had the opportunity to talk to Amon-Ra St. Brown about that very thing. Here's a little of our conversation. The Lions have gone from forgotten to phenomenon, right? As a franchise, what does it mean for you as a player to be part of such a historic turnaround for an entire generation of fans?
Yeah, it feels amazing. I wouldn't say we have a turnaround yet. We made a turnaround yet. There's still a lot of football left to be played. I think the outcome of this season will have a huge, impact on, our future, the Lions' future moving forward. But so far, man, so good. We've been playing well. The fans are excited. We're excited as a team, but we know there's still a lot of work left ahead of us. We've got the Chargers this week. They're a good team. Came off a big win against the Jets, last Monday night. So I'm excited to go back to LA. I haven't played there since my rookie year. But man, we're excited as a team. We know there's a lot of work to be done. But we just got to take it 1 week at a time. Preparation is key for us. And if we take it 1 week at a time, hopefully in 8 to 9 weeks from now, we'll be looking back. And hopefully we're in that playoff race and playing for something more.
I go back to last year when you guys started slow. What changed? Because after the 1-6 start last year, since then, it's just been gangbusters for you guys.
Yeah, I think for us, man, I wish I could tell you exactly what changed. I think, we started taking care of the ball more. I think we had 0 turnovers or something crazy the last 8 games of the season. We started playing complementary football. So, whether that's offense scoring, defense getting a stop, or defense gets a stop, we don't score, and the defense continues to get stops to kind of keep us in the game. And then just kind of learning how to win, learning how to finish games. That's kind of something that we started doing towards the end of last year. And then we kind of brought that with us this year. And we got to just keep going. Like I said, it's a 1 week at a time type thing. And that's the biggest thing for us, honestly.
All right, fantasy face-off time. You guys basically know the drill here. We talk about one of the week's most popular ads, and we evaluate them next to a bunch of similarly ranked players. We're going to start, it's got to be Tank Dell this week. Super buzzy ad. He's coming off 114 yards, couple touchdowns in an absolutely brilliant game. Saw double-digit targets. It was his 3rd huge week of the year. He's basically only had really quiet weeks and really noisy weeks so far this season. He gets Cincinnati on Sunday. That's a bottom 3rd pass defense. So Harmon, Tank Dell, or Calvin Ridley, who's been kind of boom or busty as well.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of put a bow on the boom-bust nature of Tank Dell. This stat from J.J. Zacharyson, like you mentioned, Tank Dell had a season high in target share last week. He's now scored fewer than 9 PPR points in 4 games this year and more than 20 PPR points in 3 games. So nothing in between. That is literally feast or famine. I think oh man, this one's tough. If there's no Nico Collins this weekend, if there's no Nico Collins, you'll find me crying out by the river there. But I think I'm going Tank Dell over Calvin Ridley. But if Nico Collins does play, I still think that's kind of like a really close duo there in Houston. I probably would go Calvin Ridley over Tank Dell in that scenario.
That's such a sad visual, imagining you crying by the river. We can't have it. Okay, how about whatever? Here's a receiver with an absolutely brutal matchup in a game that might end like 12-10. Amari Cooper, good player, caught the weirdest touchdown pass last week, but again, he's facing a tremendous defense this week.
Yeah, this one I'm going Tank Dell pretty confidently. I love the way that Tank Dell and CJ Stroud are connecting on like big boy routes and big boy throws, which is ironic if you know Tank Dell's measurements. This guy is winning on like corner routes, deep out routes, against man coverage on the outside. That is like true legit wide receiver stuff. So look, and Amari Cooper's fantastic. He can win on those routes too. I think he's played great football so far in his Cleveland Browns tenure the last 2 years, but Ravens matchup is too tough. I'll go with Tank Dell there.
Okay, last name, and I just want to apologize here because I know it puts you in an awkward situation when you have to contemplate sitting Tyler Lockett. He gets a pretty juicy home matchup with Washington. Lockett or Dell? Where are you going?
Yo, the juiciest. I mean, my God, we're squeezing so much juice out of the Commanders secondary right now. And you know what? I got to say, I'm going with that juicy matchup against the Washington Commanders secondary. I mean, put the lemon, put the lime, put the orange in the juicer. We're squeezing all that juicy juice out of that Commanders matchup, and we're going to start Tyler Lockett over Tank Dell.
That ended in the juiciest possible manner. So let's bring Fitz back in. Talk a few bench warmers.
Oh, you guys, you're the best. Lots of fantasy managers still alive for the playoff hunt, but now let's look at some bench warmers. Guys, you should keep on your bench for the late season push of fantasy playoffs. By the way, they're in my ear saying we got to keep it moving, so I can't sit there and react to your awful, juicy words. Andy, who's somebody on your stashing at this point?
Yeah, I'm gonna start with Tyjae Spears here, and I realize that many of you were hoping a Derrick Henry trade was gonna unlock Spears' ceiling for the rest of the year. He's still playing over 50% of the snaps each week, and he's gonna catch 45 or 50 passes at his current pace. He's also gaining 5.5 yards per carry. He's been great. You shouldn't need me to tell you that he is one of the premium sort of contingent value backs in the game. If anything at all were to happen to Derrick Henry, we're starting Spears, no questions asked, in all of our leagues without a second thought.
All right, Matt, give me somebody that you'd stash.
Yeah, basically any of these backup running backs on really good offenses, you want to stash here. Once you're done with your bye week hell, you're done with that gauntlet, you want to stick those backup running backs on your bench and just see what happens in case of injury. So I'll mention Elijah Mitchell and Jordan Mason from the San Francisco 49ers. I guarantee you a bunch of people added them going to that Minnesota Vikings Monday night game when, it was pretty highly questionable whether Christian McCaffrey was going to play, and then you're going to get that notification that, oh, Jordan Mason is on your bench, but he has been dropped by tens of thousands of millions and trillions of players on Yahoo Fantasy. Don't do that. Don't do that, because you don't want to be the person who has to rush to the waiver wire if Christian McCaffrey misses a game at some point. These are exactly the type of backs that you want to have on your bench for the upside, even if you don't have McCaffrey, okay? Because, man, that would be great if McCaffrey missed a game and you had these guys on your bench. These are the players you stash to end the season.
You could have given me that advice a little bit ago, because, oops. All right, Andy, give me somebody you're going to stash.
Yeah, I'm going to go Jackson Smith and Jigba here. And some people will tell you that I want to discuss JSN because I'm actually trying to trade him for a top-tier running back in one of my dynasty leagues. But that's an outrageous accusation. Kyle, you should definitely take this trade. I'll move on. JSN has seen 23 targets over his last 4 games, so he is heavily involved. He's got 2 scores during that stretch. Actually rarely comes off the field now. He's playing over 70% of the snaps. It is nothing but plus matchups for Seattle receivers as soon as we hit week 14. So in the most important weeks of the season, he's kind of set up for one of those Decembers to remember. You want him. Again, it's crazy that I'm shopping him in Dynasty. They should definitely jump on the deal.
I personally love you using your platform to try and help a trade. Matt,
corrupt Andy Behrens continues to use his platform to wield his power. This is absolutely disgusting.
The weaponization.
But Andy,
it really is.
But in your defense, Behrens, you are right. The other players you want to stash to end the year is upside tickets that are rookie wide receivers. Those are the other lottery tickets in addition to backup running backs. I'll name Michael Wilson. I'll go non-obvious round 1 players. I'll talk about Michael Wilson from the Arizona Cardinals. Didn't play last week. However, we have seen him play and make pretty big plays against defenses like the Niners, like the Cowboys. I think this guy can beat press man coverage. And with Kyler Murray coming back, a guy who is a really underrated, I think, at this point, downfield passer. And we're going to see him play in a real NFL offense, not Cliff Kingsbury's horizontal raid offense. I'm not saying that he's going to be Michael Wilson, that he's going to be like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who Fitz just talked to earlier. Kind of that out-of-nowhere rookie wide receiver that ended up being a league winner, which I know the phrase, I did ban the phrase, but we're going to use it here in this sense. That end-of-season like guy that carries you. I'm not saying Michael Wilson's going to be that, but I think he could give you some pretty good weeks if Kyler Murray comes back strong.
Are you currently trying to trade him in any of your leagues?
No.
Okay.
Listen, I'm with you. Integrity, ethics, transparency. That's the Harmon platform, and I'm not using this show as my bully pulpit to try to get my trades pushed through in Dynasty. I would never do that.
The front of my business card says all of those things. The back says win at all costs. All right, it is time for the hurry up offense. You guys know what we do. We put the clock up. We got 25 seconds for the guys to get an answer to great questions that you've submitted. And we start with Casey asking, quarterback spot, Geno Smith, Joshua Dobbs, or Kyler Murray? Barons, we'll go with you. What do you think on this one?
Oh, I know I talked up Kyler Murray earlier, but Washington just detonated their defense, and they had already been so vulnerable against the pass. I think I got to go Geno Smith here. Again, Washington's given up like 19 passing scores this year. It's got to be Geno.
Anything else you want to share with us? We still got 9 seconds left. Okay, fine. We'll clear the clock. We'll go to this one.
So no.
Okay, perfect. Pizza Pits comes in with the next question, and really just a great name, Pizza Pits. I don't like it. Does he have Pizza Pits? I don't know. Miles Sanders versus Justice Hill for the flex spot. Harmon, what say you?
I saw him talk about Pizza Pits. Oh. You send in a question like this. You don't send in like, here are my 3 great receivers. Pick from them. Look at my little problems. I guess it's Miles Sanders because it's a 2-way backfield.
We almost barely got that one in. All right. Sean, Trackstar121388. I just read the whole thing to take up more time here. Says DJ Moore, G. Wilson, Kincaid. So I love that Kincaid didn't get that first initial. Okay, Barons, what do you think?
Yeah, this is really close for me between DJ Moore and Garrett Wilson. Again, the issue with Garrett Wilson is not targets. He gets a million of them. It's just a lot of them are uncatchable. I think I probably lean DJ Moore here in a friendly matchup.
All right, we'll pull the next question up. And Yusuf says, Montgomery, Kirk, Boyd, I should mention he put a comma between each, Noah Brown in a 0.5 PPR with the hashtag AskFFL, and also great job using capital A, capital F,
David
F,
Montgomery.
and L. What do you? I tried.
Talk about enough already. Enough already, Fitz. Just David Montgomery's the answer.
Oh man, you didn't make that any fun, Harmon. Harmon stole my joy here. All right, next question up on the hurry up offense. Corey says Gus Edwards or Javonte Williams. What do you think, Andy Barons?
Oh, murderous matchup for Gus Edwards this week. I'm going Javonte. Again, talked about him earlier. He's coming off a 30-touch game. The volume has absolutely been elite lately, and his performance has been kind of vintage Javonte as well. So he's an easy start for me.
I also love that I got a little side eye there from Harmon because I asked that question so quickly. I appreciate that. All right, we'll keep it going here. We'll see what we got next. EHM, Foreman, Brown, or Flowers. Ask FFL. Make your pick. What do you think, Harmon?
Oh, God. This is hard. Not Noah Brown. It's between Foreman and Flowers to me. Ooh, I think I'm going to go Foreman in a pretty good matchup where he's going to get a lot of work. I think there are good and better days ahead for Zay Flowers, but give me Foreman this week.
All right. Look, that was very efficient by you. By the way, note I got it to you quickly this time. I got the ball out of my hand quickly. I don't know what this name is. Is it Adams, Cooper, Addison, Kirk? What do you think, Barons?
Oh, I think I kind of hate this question. This is nothing but brutal matchups, right? And or sketchy quarterbacks. If this were me, I'm just going Devontae Adams. He is the best. You know, all due respect to the rest of these guys, he is the best player here. He is still getting volume. Let's go Devontae, despite the recent results.
I'm a little scared of the volume he will get or not get this weekend. Susan says Stevenson or Gibbs. Harmon, what say you? Stevenson or Gibbs with 2 question marks?
Thank you for specifying the punctuation. That's always really helpful when we're getting these questions out. I'll go with Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm just trusting a better offense here, okay? Look, it's a split backfield between Stevenson and Zeke on a terrible offense, or a split backfield on the Lions, which is a good offense. So I will go Gibbs on this one.
I just wanted you to understand it was a really serious question. 2 question marks says like, hey, I really need your help. Philip comes in next, also really needing the help, saying George Pickens, Jerome Ford, or Taysom Hill. Ask FFL. I'm asking Barons. What do you think?
Yeah, sometimes I like a diva receiver after they've thrown a tantrum, but if you've listened to anything that Mike Tomlin has said about George Pickens this week, I don't think it's happening. I don't think anything is changing. I am taking Taysom Hill here. He has 20 carries over the last 2 weeks and like 3 touchdowns. He's been so good. It's weird to take a kind of tight end, but I'm going Hill.
I like that pick a lot. All right, next up on the list, we'll go to Ethan, who says Kincaid or DJ Moore at flex. What do you think there, Harmon?
How spoiled are you, Ethan? I wonder who your tight end is. I mean, maybe you've got the Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid super rookie stack there. Ah, man, I don't know. This one's really hard. I guess if you need just the safe floor, just go with Kincaid, I guess.
Yeah, that was less than convincing, but we still got the play done. That's all that matters. Next, we've got Cheeseburger Fantasy saying Thielen or Foreman standard. Hashtag AskFFL. All right, what do you think, Barons?
For real, I can't believe that you can't start both of these guys. I mean, Thielen has been like a top 10 receiver. He's been great. It's a super friendly matchup. I'm probably leaning Thielen there. I mean, man, the Bears have given up 20 touchdown passes. He's got to catch one.
All right, okay, I like that. Also, Cheeseburger Fantasy, I like the fact that they put the little cheeseburger icon in there. That's well done by them. Tyler says, Ramondre or Aaron Jones, 1 point, period, PPR. You had room to write out point if you wanted to. Go ahead anyway, though. What do you think, Harmon?
Yeah, Aaron Jones, man. I love Matt LaFleur just being straight up with us like, hey, it's time to rock. I'm ready to just load up Aaron Jones with a bunch of work, and that is exactly what happened. Pretty funny that the Packers, I'll use my 13 seconds here to be just a jerk to the Packers, but pretty funny that like they're like, yeah, Aaron Jones, you have to take a pay cut, all that stuff, but yet they can't run their offense without him. Hilarious stuff at the running back position right now.
Let's get one more in, and this one is going to come up from RL Sully. Hashtag AskFFL. Thielen or Metcalf. Barons, what do you think?
Listen, I'm happy to yield my time if Harmon wants to trash the Packers any further. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I'm going to go Thielen here. No disrespect to Metcalf or his matchup. It's great. But again, Thielen is facing a pass defense that has allowed 20 touchdown passes. I have to think that he finds the end zone. The volume has just been there so consistently.
As the person that picked him in primetime picks, I hope you are right. Join us each and every week, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Check out our whole library of podcasts, including the Yahoo Fantasy Football Show. Got a lot more proud of out there. Check back Sunday mornings for your latest on player injuries. And our very own Scott Pianowski will be answering your last-minute questions on social media. You just got to say hashtag AskFFL. He'll get it to you. Good luck to all your teammates. On behalf of everybody that's out there that works their tails off to put this show together, Andy Barons, Matt Harmon, I'm Jason Fitz. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this week. Come back next Thursday for more Fantasy Football Live.